Today we're going to be talking about how do we leverage all of the data, or not all, but a lot of the data that's available through Retail Inc. To build out visibility and dashboards to help support business endeavors with partnering with Walmart, mainly for assortment optimization, assortment decisions, supply chain improvements, and things of that nature. A little bit about myself. I'm a father of four. I got 10 years experience at Walmart from 2002 up until about 2013. I then left Walmart and started a company called Data Ninja, did some supply chain consulting. Recently got certified by Titleist as a Performance Institute Golf Level 2 coach. Play a little bit of poker, and I am a data junkie. I've also included a little reference here of my LinkedIn if you wanted to add me on there. So again, back to the course. It's designed for existing users of Retail Inc. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to dive into some of the key metrics from a merchandising decision standpoint: sales by type, markdowns, store inventory and in-stock root cause, forecast information, some of the OTIF reporting, and then jump into a little bit of the store of the community analytics and things of that nature. The foundation of kind of what we're going to talk today about is going to be centered around a flow of information and how there's kind of a cyclical approach of pulling it, modeling it, blending it, presenting it or digesting it, taking action from it, and then again following back up on the actions that you take to monitor the results that are from the output, pulling some more information, and rinse and repeat. The primary source that we'll be talking about today is going to be from Retail Inc. There's a plethora of sources that we can use. We can use census data, Walmart.com, third-party systems, but we will focus primarily on Retail Inc. reporting today through DSS and some of the various apps that are built into Retail Inc. Key to success today would be to install Power BI Desktop. We can go through that install process. Ideally, you can install it from the Windows Store if you have a Windows 7 Plus machine. If your organization blocks Windows Store downloads, then you can use the link attached here in this slide to download directly from Microsoft's portal. You can just click on download free here, and that'll take you to another download page. So this would be for Microsoft Store. And again, if you don't have access to the Microsoft Store download, then you can actually go to this link, which would allow you to download the MSI file, and you would more than likely pick this x64 version, download that installer software, and go ahead and install Power BI onto your machine. A Microsoft account is required to leverage Power BI to its fullest extent. If you have a Power BI Pro account, you can leverage their online platform, so the Power BI service where you can upload reports and schedule them for automatic refresh, things of that nature. But the free account that you can get through Microsoft is all that would be necessary for today to leverage the capabilities from Power BI Desktop itself. And I've included like a little video here that you can watch at your convenience if you're not sure which one you wanted to engage with. Some Power BI resources. Gynacube is a great resource. They've got a channel, so they're employed by Microsoft directly. They've got a channel on YouTube that they provide a lot of great content from beginner stuff to really advanced deep stuff. That's one of my go-to resources from a Power BI perspective. The Power BI blog, they'll update releases, so they'll usually have about one release per month, and they'll blog about it containing all of the information that's part of that particular release. They've also got development releases, pipeline releases, and various of other services that they tailor their blog posts to, centered around Power BI's architecture. RadCAD, this one's good. They do a lot of training. They got a good amount of blog action going on. SQL BI is really good as well. And DAX Patterns is another great site. And then I've included a couple of links for a few of their posts. They get really deep into their calculation, lining out how to do dynamic ranges versus custom filtering, all built into the DAX model itself that powers the Power BI calculation architecture. So we'll go ahead and jump right into Retail Inc. What we're going to do is we're going to create us a store master report. So what we can do is once we've logged into Retail Inc., we would then go to DSS. So from the homepage, you would type in new decision support, or if you already have a quick link, go ahead and jump to it. And once you're inside of DSS, you should see on the left side of that menu a drop down that looks similar to what we have on the screen here. You would want to choose business unit information. Once you choose that, a template down below would show up that you can click on, and that will open up your report designer. From the report designer standpoint, we would want to, I'm going to go ahead and pull it open here. Just one moment. So here we'd want to expand out store information, and we were going to select some columns for this. We'll pick store number, name, we'll do store type, open Sunday, street address, city, state, zip, major zone, subzone, financial report code. Pick the subdivision, region, and district. Go ahead and pick the open date, expansion open date, and that should suffice for now. And then we'll jump over to the locations tab within the report, and then we're going to select the stores. Once that populates over to the right side, we're going to open the store type breakdown folder and select all stores. So I'll do that on my side as well. Go here, let this page load, store type breakdown, all stores. Scroll back up, and then we can go over to the submit tab. And here what we would like to do is we're going to schedule this to run weekly, and we're also going to submit it right now. We have options to have the format in Excel or a text file. The larger suppliers with lots of data would more than likely need to select a text file and compress it before downloading, just because of the size of the files for sales or inventory history and things of that nature. And we can kind of cover that as we get a little bit deeper into that. But for the store master, I think Excel 2007 should be fine, and we don't need to compress. So we'll go ahead and jump back over here and set that up. And if you wanted to schedule this, I would recommend running it on Sunday and Monday each week. Therefore, if come Monday morning, Retail Inc.'s got some sort of hiccups or delays in their processing, you should be able to pick up the file from the previous day on Sunday. Of course, you can pick this and run it every day if you'd like, but suffice for Sunday and Monday should be good. Then we'll go ahead and give it a name. So we'll call this Store Master. Click Run. We'll let it run. And then you can also hit Save. So this will save it into the template. And then what that template will do is, let me drag this back over. So under My Reports, you will then be able to see saved reports. It's also good to create folder structures to kind of keep everything nice and clean. So I've created a location data folder through my SOTC query into that. So I can go ahead and drag my store master query into that folder as well. And we can go back over to the status page, and we can see that our store master file is done. So we can go ahead and open it up. So we're going to be using these files to import them into Power BI. So a couple call outs here as we look at this. When we import it into Power BI is going to see all of these records. So what we'll do is inside of Power BI, we'll go ahead and delete them and then promote this row to headers. But for now, what we can do is go ahead and close out of this guy. Note where we did download it to. So we've downloaded it directly to the downloads folder. Could be pretty handy to create it like a reports folder somewhere that you can start to drop some of these into. So you can grab it from the downloads folder and just drag it over into your reports folder. Keeps everything nice and clean. Once it comes over here, there's potential that it might have kind of one of these funky names. So we'd want to go ahead and rename it to something that makes more sense, like Store Master. So this kind of goes over the scheduling that we just talked about. Next, what we'll do is inside of this business unit information template, again, we will create our store of the community data pool. So let me jump back over to decision support. Pull this back up and click business unit information. This time, we're only going to pull store number, and then we're also going to choose selected store trait. And what we want to do now is we're going to go to locations. And we want to expand the traits folder from the left side. Brings up a bunch of folders over on the right side. The ones that we're looking for are operations alignment and store of the community. So let's go ahead and click on traits. So we want to scroll down to operations alignment, expand it. I'm going to grab store format, so we'll expand that one out. And if we click and drag, so while holding the mouse, we can just click and drag and add all of these over to our selection. Go ahead and collapse that folder, and then we will find our store of the community folder. And there's a bunch of traits in here that we can use for this pass. We'll just kind of grab a few of these. So we'll just grab ethnicity. Again, we can just click and drag, making sure we hover over all of them while we drag. Close that one. We'll grab community characteristics. Go ahead and drag over those. Urbanicity. Grab those three. We can grab weather impact. And we can grab people, culture, religion. And we will also grab the geographic attribute. Now we've got a pretty healthy list. What we want to do from here is we want to go over to the submit page. And before we submit it, we actually want to highlight this and we want to copy everything that's in here inside of this box. So we want to start from operations alignment and select everything that's visible. There's potentially, you might have a scroll bar here. So make sure that you scroll while you're highlighting, you scroll all the way to the bottom and grab everything. And then we're going to hit Control-C to copy it, or you can right click and copy. What we're going to do now is we're going to open up Excel. We're going to paste. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to try and grab all of these values and we're going to create a map that we can use inside of Power BI. So we've got them over here. Go ahead and slide this out of the way so that we can go ahead and submit our report. Give it a name. So we call this one SOTC. Excel is fine again. We can schedule this to run weekly as well. And then once we run it, it'll show up in our list of submitted reports. And then, so I've got that pasted over here as shown in the template. And then basically what we're going to do now is we're going to start to create some formula inside Excel to start to extract some of this information so that we can use it inside of Power BI a little bit easier. So what we want to do is, starting in cell A9, so we're going to go over here. So A9, we're going to add these column headers. So I'm going to say trait group and trait group, trait category, and trait category. Next one's going to be trimmed, and then trait text to split. And then in the next row, we're going to start to enter these formulas. So we want to say equals find. Basically what we're doing is we're trying to take this pattern, we're trying to get the information out of it, again, in a little bit of a neater format so that we can leverage it from a modeling perspective. So we're going to say find, open parenthesis, quotation, the minus sign twice, so minus minus greater than. So I'm going to look for that basically in this text. So find that within A1, and that's going to return a number. So we want to take that number, we want to add 3 to it. So that's basically going to get us past that section. And then we can go to B10, and we're going to say equals trim left of A1, find that value again in A1 minus 2. So that's going to give us basically just the category section of that entire string, right? We can expand these out a little bit so it's easier to follow along. And then let's go to C. So C10 is going to be this formula. Equals find inside of A1, and what we're going to start at the value from A10. So we're going to find this after we've already found it once. So basically we're trying to look for it the second time. So let's make sure that matches. C10, A1, A10. Yep. So that looks good. So that's basically going to tell us where that second occurrence is going to be. And then we're going to take that number and then back it up a little bit and then grab the trait category here. So we want to say equals mid. So the middle part of the text, middle part of A1, start with that value of A10. And then we want to get the number of characters is going to be C10. So where we found the next version of it, minus A10, where we found the first. So that gives us that middle part. And now what we're going to do is trim that off and take off the number in the front because we don't necessarily need that for our data set. So E10, we're going to say equals trim right D10, length of D10 minus find the hyphen inside of D10 and go back to spaces from there. And let's go back one space. So we got store formats, and then our text to split is now going to be mid of A1, C10 plus 4. I'm going to adjust this. We'll see. Length of A1. Looks like it captured it good. So that gave us the last section of that long string. And that is what we will use to build our split table. So we want to take this, and since there's 7 rows, we're going to drag this down 7 rows. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So now we've got each of these kind of captured, and we will now go to the next step, which is going to be to create new headers. We're going to do row 19, trait, group, trait, category, trait, number, trait, description. So we're going to use the split function inside of cell C20. So basically we're going to go back over here. We're going to try and split the values that are in here, assuming that a comma is going to tell us that we have a new row, and then that the hyphen is going to be our column delimiter. So basically we're going to try and turn this into rows and columns. So I'm going to say split that value. And what we're looking for is a hyphen. And that's going to be our column delimiter, and our row delimiter is going to be a comma with a space. And our spaces in there. So space, hyphen, space, and then comma, space. Text split. Help if I spell it correctly. There we go. So that handy little formula basically parsed out this information from that one cell and gave us some rows and columns. So now what we can do is pretty much copy this, go to the next available section. Actually, first, let's grab the category. We're going to paste it as values. And we're going to grab this and paste that as values as well. So now we can continue. So let's go ahead and copy this formula. So we want to do the same thing for the next record over here. So instead of F10, we want to do this for F11. Rest of the formula should be good. We hit enter and it fills down for ethnicity. So now we want to grab this, copy and paste special as values. And then we're going to say the rest of them is going to be store the community, so we can wait. We can fill that one in just a moment. All right, let's go ahead and grab that formula again. And now we're going to do F12. Gives us the next chunk, and that would be community characteristics. Again, copy, paste special as values. Copy the formula. Change it to F13. Get our next 3, which is going to be ethnicity. Copy, paste special values. Swap it to 14. Weather impact. Copy the category. Paste special values again. We got 2 more. So when we highlight into this and we copy this, we want to hit escape. Otherwise, if we don't, what it's going to do is try and make us change our formula. So we don't want to do that. So we want to hit escape after we copy. So copy, hit escape, backs us out of the editing the cell, click on our new cell, paste, and change to the next row. This was culture. Copy, escape, paste, change it to 16. And we're going to grab geographic attribute, paste special values. And now we can fill store the community all the way down for the rest of these guys. So this kind of lines out, again, the formulas that we just did. We copy and pasted them, and then we filled the trait groups down. And now what we want to do is we want to copy that small little table that we created and paste it into a new workbook. So highlight it, copy it, and then we can Control N to open a new workbook, and we want to paste special values. And now we want to save this file, save as, inside of probably our reports folder. And then we want to save it as something that makes sense, probably like SOTC traits. So I've already done that, so I'm not gonna save over that, but we will use this file a little bit later as well. So now let's go back to Retail Inc. and we're going to create our item master template. Open decision support back up. And we're going to go to new decision support this time. So last time we were inside of business unit information. This time we're going to go to new decision support. And we're going to pick company summary from the sales and margin folder. Choose our report columns. Here you can choose pretty much any item information that you'd want to aggregate or filter on. We're going to go ahead and select a few here. So prime item number, descriptions, probably unit cost and retail, color, size, some item status information, UPC information, pallet tie high. It's always handy. Current MBM code is a good one to have. And if we scroll down a little bit inside here, let's go over here. So we'll start selecting a few. Item subtype. Item dimensions. You can use those for some advanced stuff later on to dynamically create some SSO stuff and pallet tie high information. So we're going to actually pull in buyer info as well. Pull in buyer user ID and name. Then we will also get department classifications. So we'll do segment, subgroup, category, group, category, subcat, fine line description. You can choose fine line number if you'd like to as well. We can grab activity code if we want, never out flag. Again, any of these that you think might be pertinent for grouping or aggregations within your reporting, or if you want to filter based on any of these other values that would segregate your information for you, you can select those if you'd like. We're also going to add POS quantity or sales, either one. Basically what this is going to do is just help the report run a little bit faster. So we'll jump over to our items page, and we want to select activity level. By default, typically Retail Inc. Chooses an active only filter, even if you don't select it. So on the item master, we actually want to choose combined activity. What this is going to do is it'll pick up new items before they have ships or sales or forecast information. So as soon as the item gets created in the item file, overnight update, they should be able to get picked up within this query. That active only filter is only going to pull items that have had a sell or a ship or a return or some sort of store activity within the last 13 months. So old items would fall out and new items would not show up until they got some sort of activity. So we want to go ahead and just do combined activity. So we pull all of the item information that's available, which would be helpful for us to do roll-ups and find item replacements and things of that nature. So we've got combined activity, then we're going to go to filters. From filters, we've got some options here, but what we want to do is basically grab all items. So we add a filter for item number is not one of 0, and hit enter. Comes up in this box, so we just hit and. The other options we could do is vendor number is equal to, and type in your 6-digit vendor number, or list those out if you want to do it that way. You can also do consumer ID is not one of 0. So a couple of different options. You can do find line numbers, not 0, things of that nature. Basically what we're trying to do is we have to have some sort of a filter, but we want to choose one that's not going to limit any of the products that we want to pull back. So we've got our filter in place. We'll go to times. Here, given that idea that we need activity for the items to pull back, we're trying to override it, but it's also good to go ahead and choose fuzzy dates that are the most broad. So we want to do this year, fiscal year to date, last year totals, year before last totals. And we can go submit and give it our name, item master, or whatever we want to call it. We could do Excel, or we could do text, but Excel is probably the better option here because we have a lot of columns. If we choose text, and we can I'll show you that when we get to the sales reporting, but we'll choose text for it. The result of that file does not have any file headers, so you've got to come back to your selection to figure out what order the columns are in. But for this example, item master's got a bunch of columns, so we'll just go ahead and do Excel 2007. Again, here you can schedule it if you'd like to run weekly or daily. Save it to your reports folders, and then go ahead and run it. When you hit save, it defaults to fall into a folder similar to this. Depending on what other reports you have saved, like this report name might be different. But again, I would encourage you to create a report for like weekly reports or something along those lines. Because once you save it, you've got to go out here and find it. And then you would want to drag it into your report to kind of keep that section clean. Okay, so let's go back over here. This is walking through combined activity, and then item number is not one of 0. Our time range filters, and then give it our name and schedule it. So we've got item number running, and now we will go create our weekly sales template. This is going to be also inside of new decision support, sales margin. We're going to select store detail. Got the column selections available on the PowerPoint. So we'll go ahead and copy that. Let's get our template pulled up. So we want to choose item information, item number. And we want to choose business unit information, store information, store number. We don't need to pick all these other columns because in our data model, we've already chosen all of these from our store master file. So that's why we're just kind of limiting our data pool to just the necessities. We also want to choose our time selection. We want to pull by Walmart week. And then we're going to open up the POS folder. For point of sale, we're going to pick our sales description. So if you right click one of these over to the left, you'll be able to see kind of a description of what you can expect to be returned in that column. So we're doing sales description. We want POS sales, POS quantity, and you can do comp store sales and comp store quantity as well if you'd like. We don't need to pick average price because we're going to calculate those inside of Power BI so that we can aggregate them as needed. So that's good there. Now, again, we need an item filter. So in this case, we don't need combined activity because we are only interested in items that have sales or that are on the sales table. So we'll jump over to items, do our filter for item number is not equal to 0. Zero, enter, and then hit and we'll jump over to locations. And from here, we want to select stores, store type breakdown, all stores. And then for the time selection, we want to choose probably last 52 weeks, and last year, last 52 weeks is probably a good one. Again, this is going to produce a lot of information if you have a lot of items. So the choice when you go to submit would be predicated on how many items you have across how many stores. If you choose Excel, what can happen is the data will wrap around itself because Excel does have a limitation on the number of rows that it can produce. And that number is 1,048,576. So basically, if it has more records than that, when it goes to create this file, it starts to wrap around and repopulate from the top down, and it could loop through that several times, and you will end up with incomplete information. So if we do some quick math, let's assume there's 4,700 stores and you have items in all stores. We want to do 1048. So that's basically our number of Excel rows, number of stores, and then we want number of weeks is going to be 104 because we did last 52 and last year last 52. So drag this down. So if we have one item in every store, that'd be 4,700 times the number of items times the number of weeks. So that'd be 480,000 records just for one item. So you can see quickly we could get over our maximum row count. 3 items kind of pushes it. That's assuming you have items in all stores. So I would say if you got 5 or more items, the option is better suited to select text file, compress it so it's a smaller download. What I want to show you though, in this particular example, I'm going to I'm going to run it for a very short time frame so that I can pull up the Excel file and show you how the data comes back, because there's a caveat in some of these reports. I'm just going to say sales temp, Excel, compress it, last 2 weeks. That's good. Again, you can schedule this to run weekly as you need. Let's jump back over to our status page. So there's our sales temp query that we just submitted. While that runs, we can go ahead and start to set up our next report, which is going to be markdowns. And again, we're going to be inside new decision support, store detail. Let's grab that template again and pull it over. So in this report, we want to choose item information, item number again, store number under business unit information. And then we want to choose MUMD scannable item. Actually, first we want to go into event information. So this is basically the markup, markdown event information. And there's several event ID / description combinations, and there is one for every markup and markdown. So a markup event has a matching markdown event. So the IDs basically are doubled, but we're going to go ahead and grab the event description. Oh, let's go back up here. We're going to grab our week. I forgot to choose our week. Walmart week. And over here, now we can click on it, and then we want to move it up. And then we can choose our quantity and total dollar. Our items, our standard item number is not equal to 0 will be what we want here. Locations, we want all stores. So we hit stores, store type breakdown, all stores. Times, again, we want last 52 and last year last 52 under fuzzy dates. Jump over to the submit page and we'll call this one MUMD for markup markdown. Again, this is probably going to be a larger file if you've got a lot of items. Not quite as large as the sales file, but definitely could get up there pretty quick if you've got items that are in departments that regularly mark down product. So you'd want to choose text, compressed, run it, save it, schedule it as necessary. We'll go ahead and check on our sales temp report. It is done. So this is the Excel file for sales, and I wanted to show you what we selected versus what comes back. So let's go to modify. So we've got the report selected. Let's hit modify. So we selected item number, store number, week. Okay, let's pull up the report from our downloads. So it was compressed. So what we want to do is extract all. Ask us where we want to extract it to. You can choose a location. I just extract it where it is, and then it's going to open the folder for me. And now I can open that file. So again, this has got kind of like a, basically it's the user ID and then a report processing ID and then a jumbled text or hex code version of the report name that we created. But we'll open it up. And then again, we'll compare what comes back to what we selected. And we will notice that there is a slight difference. Minimize that. So we go back to our report selection page. We chose item number, we got that. Item flags, what the heck? We did not choose item flags. So what happens basically is when we choose item number, item flags automatically gets inserted into the report right next to item number. And this is going to hold true for the markdown query. It's going to hold true for the sales query. So be cognizant of that, that there is scenarios where you would have inserted values. And if we were to run this initially as a text file, I'll go ahead and do that. So I'll just do like this for this example. So I can show you what that looks like. But it does insert a column, which is good to, again, first run an Excel with a limited subset of information so that we can make sure that we know what to expect when a text file does come across, which is very helpful for when we start to get into our Power BI side of things. Okay, well, we'll put that on the back burner. We'll come back to it. So sales text file can run. We've got our markdown query running, so that's good. We saved it off. Again, and when we save off a report, it's going to land into the My Report section, into this reports folder, and then we would have to go find it and then click and drag and drop it into a folder that we created. So here would be an example if I go like weekly reports, create new. Now I have a weekly reports folder. So there's a lot of saved reports in here. So we could use a little bit of help in cleaning these up. So we want to grab item master. See if we can get it to scroll for us. No. So we basically have to click and drag it while we're holding the mouse button. We use the mouse wheel to scroll back up. And then when we get our folder, we go ahead and let go of the mouse button. Hit the refresh. And now our saved report should be inside of our weekly reports folder. Looks like our text file report for sales is formatting and is done. So let's go ahead and take a peek at it. And again, we didn't change anything from our Excel version. We just changed the format to text. And if we extract it, we're going to open it. I like to use Notepad++. It's a pretty handy app. So here's our data in a raw format. Notice that we don't have headers. So we would have to reference back to our column selections. So we check the report, modify. It's loading up in the background. And again, we can double check that we have item number, store number, week, sales description, PO sales, quantity, comp sales, comp quantity. So what we want to do is use our right arrow key to the end of the item number, which is the first field. And if we hit the right arrow key again, we notice that we get into a space. It doesn't automatically take us over to the store number column, which would be this 1. If we hit right arrow key again, now we see it jump over. So this is basically a tab delimited file. But if we were to import this directly into Power BI right now, it would notice that there is a column after item number before store number. And since we pulled our Excel version of that report, we know that that is the item flags column. So I just wanted to call that out as we talked about, larger suppliers or suppliers with several items would be better off running their reports as text files so that they can return a lot of records without Excel compromising them. The caveat again is Retail-Inc does insert the item flags column after the item number into the results. Okay, let's get back to where we were. We had set up our markdown report, scheduled and submitted. Now we're going to set up our weekly inventory report. Again, we're inside new decision support, store detail, and then these are the columns we're going to pick. So I'm going to pick store detail. Shrink this down a little bit. For the item inventory, basically we want historical on-hand information and historical traded and valid information. So we want to choose item information, item number, business unit information, store number, and we want to find the inventory folder. In this particular instance, we're going to do store inventory. So when the inventory folder expands, we want to choose store inventory. And then we want to choose, I believe it's store on hand. So these current store on hand, current tab on hand, current on order, these values, regardless of what time frame you choose in the times, are always going to return the most recent inventory position as of last night. So I could choose last 4 weeks, or I could even choose a week in the past. And if I choose this column, it's going to ignore that time frame, and this value that gets returned is always going to be from last night. So we don't want to choose those on-hand columns. We're expanding this on-hand folder because we want to grab average traded and average valid store item combinations. We also want to grab average in stock and average REPL in stock. So those are going to give us our historical numbers, Friday close of business for each week. And then next we're going to go to historical on hand. And we want to grab all of these. It's not necessary, but it is handy if we want to do a little bit deeper dive of potentially calculating the number of days in a row that an item has been out of stock or something along those lines. But ideally, we need historical on-hand quantity. These are just additive numbers here. And checking back onto our template. That should be the gist of our column selection. Go to items, pick our handy dandy item number filter, is not one of 0. Locations, stores, all stores. Times. Again, we want to match the other reports that we're pulling. So we're pulling the last 52 weeks and last year, last 52 weeks. So we go to time range 1, fuzzy dates. Last year, last 52 weeks, and last 52 weeks. And this would be inventory history. We definitely want text compressed. Again, caveat's going to be when the text file comes back, there's going to be a blank column after item number. So we go ahead and schedule that, run it, save it, do the same Same pattern as we have been. While that one's running, we can go ahead and set up our supply plan. Supply plan is a report inside of Retail Link that will basically taps into Walmart's forecasting system, and they generate a order forecast that is based on shipping constraints, the actual sales forecast, and some other vendor level constraints and truckload rounding and things of that nature. But basically, it'll give us a forward look of what Walmart anticipates on ordering from the supplier. Super helpful. So let's go ahead and open this template. We want to go into supply chain, supply plan. We're going to choose item number again. And this time we're actually going to choose warehouse number, because that's the node, typically the node that gets shipped into the Walmart network. If you do ship direct to store, then you could potentially choose store number instead of warehouse. But for this example, we are going to choose warehouse number. And for forecast information, we're going to choose all of these. So plan create date, plan order date, plan receive date, and units. So plan create date is when the forecasted plan was created. The order date is when they expect to create the order. The receive date is when you as the supplier are expected to have that product land at either the warehouse or the store that you select. So we'll choose these. This supply plan is not a guarantee of orders. Again, it is just a forecast of anticipated orders based on sales patterns, sales forecasts, and the shipping constraints that are set up in the system for the network that your items are attached to. Then we'll go to items, we'll do our filter. Item number is not one of 0. Locations, this time since we selected warehouse number as our node, we want to choose warehouses. All warehouses. Times, this one's going to be a little bit different because again, this is a forward-looking report. So we would want to choose fuzzy date, current week, and then we also want to expand out future PO Walmart month. And we'll just grab all of the ones that are available. So this is good because typically there's a 16 to 17 week forward-looking forecast that Walmart will produce. Sometimes it goes out further. So if it goes out further, we can grab that information, but we should expect that we should be able to get, probably 3 to 4 months worth of information from this. Some items, again, might carry past that. Some of them might not. And as we save this report and run it, supply plan, you could do Excel on this one if you'd like, or text, compressed, schedule it, and save it, run it. What we want to be aware of is that these dates are going to be saved into the report. So every month or every couple months, what we'll need to do is we'll need to go into that saved report and go to this times. We're going to clear it and then just choose the ones that are available at that time. So in December, these two would fall off. So we don't want to pick December forward, and we would get the 2 months after that. So you just want to kind of maybe, again, maybe once a month or once every couple months, go ahead and update the future PO ship months and then save it. So that one's good. Go ahead and run it. Oh, let's go back. This one is similar to our forecast that new items potentially would not show up in the supply plan if we do not add the activity filter of combined activity. So we would definitely want to do that inside of that supply plan report. So we're on the item tab. We did our filter for item number is not one of 0. And then we would also want to go over to activity level and choose combined activity. And then finish out, save it, schedule it, run it. Now let's check on that text file done. Yeah, went through that one already. Okay. Next up, we'll go through a retailing template called the out of stock root cause. Take a little break from some DSS reports, let them process a little bit. So here we would go to our homepage and we can type in out of stock. This is actually a wiki page. Let's go to apps. Out of stock root cause dashboard. This interface isn't super friendly, but it is pretty handy. So we can still leverage it and gain some good insights from it. We would want to go through and choose a department, a category, or you can do it one item at a time. We'll just do it this way for this example. So we chose our category filter and then hit apply. This is going to show us, based on Walmart's calculations, what our current in stock is and what is contributing to our out of stocks at store level. So this current category that we've selected shows that there was a recent modular and is impacting our in stock by 55 basis points. Item validity is impacting it by 20 basis points. If we click that, then we can go into the next level and we can see that under validity, we've actually got consumer ID in stock impact for 19 basis points. So when we're checking through this, what we want to find is potential opportunities that we can dig a little bit deeper into, kind of note them, and be ready to chase those opportunities to maximize our in-store availability. Let's go back to the front page. So forecast is contributing to some out of stocks as well, and then supplier constraints and OTIF is impacting our in-stock. So we can see that staple stock items, so items that are supposed to be stored in the DCs, are causing us to, in this category, have a 1.3% decrease in our in-stock. Prepaid and extended prepaid are also contributing to about a 0.5% of in-stock. And then there was some returns to the DC from store level that have impacted our in-stock as well. So pretty handy information. Unfortunately, the way this is set up, we can't natively get the information out of here. There are tools and providers that can scrape this information for you and get it down to the item level, and then you can use that and load it into Power BI or Excel or SQL database or whatever you want, so that you can dig in a little bit deeper. But again, for this exercise, we've chosen a category and kind of drilled through what we can do. I'll show you an example of an item. Let me grab an item real quick. So I'm going to clear the other filters. Go ahead and hit apply. From a business scenario, you probably want to check, maybe if you got 50 items, probably top 5 volume items, and make sure that they're performing as expected. Now let's see this particular item. Again, there was a recent mod. There's some validity changes, so probably additions and deletes through the mod process have impacted our in-stock. New stores coming on board, and then stores that we were in or we got deleted from potentially. Over here, we're looking at supplier impact. On time again is 0.5%, and return to DC is at 2 basis points. And then store operations has impacted our in-stock by store level on-hand adjustments. So basically what that is, a store associate probably was going to restock our item, and the system showed that it had maybe 9 on hand. When they went to go in the back room and pull it, they couldn't find any, so they did an on-hand adjustment and said, nope, we don't have 9, we have 0. And that then caused us to show as out of stock. So that is our out of stock root cause dashboard. Again, very handy. Not super user-friendly, but it's got pretty good information. And if you want to be able to get the data out of here, you could go over to this table tab and try to copy. But again, you'd have to do this one item at a time, or a category level to get the necessary information that you'd be looking for. Next, we will go into OTIF, which is another portal within Retail Inc. Our apps page. We want on time, in full scorecard. Got some alerts. Looks like data loading. So this is a page that you definitely should frequent. This is purchase order tracking as it relates to, did you ship what Walmart asked you to ship, and did you ship as much as they wanted you to, and did you get it to the locations that it needed to when they needed to get there? On time and in full. That is what OTIF stands for. This dashboard front page kind of breaks those 2 accountability levels out. If you don't meet particular thresholds within Walmart's parameters drafted by category or division, then you will get fined. So if you're short shipping or not shipping product and you reach a certain threshold, you'll then get fined potentially 3% of the cost of goods that you were supposed to ship. But for this scenario, let's go ahead and change our data displayed, and we're going to look at 12 weeks. So we can see for this particular supplier, they were on time. 94% of the cases were on time. Prepaid, they do not have any collect orders. They got pretty good in full. Walmart does break out in a little bit more detail of what makes up these different buckets. The things to pay attention to on here are going to be any sag in our trend. So this one's actually trending up, which is good. If we see particular dips, we'd want to definitely address those as soon as we can. informing Walmart of when the product would then become available if you're short shipping it, or if you're out. If you've got supply chain issues, definitely inform Walmart of those issues so that they can make the necessary adjustments inside of their supply chain system, so that it potentially shuts orders off, or they can adjust the forecast so that it decreases orders depending on your product availability. So it's definitely good. Again, I use this tool for collaboration with Walmart on any supply chain issues that might arise within your network that would impact delivery of product to Walmart's network. And you can drill into this, select different measures. So if you just wanted to look at on time or only look at it in full, you can do that. On time variance over time. So this basically is the days variance between when you delivered it and when Walmart expected it to be delivered. If you're more than 1 day early or any days late, you're considered not compliant. The reason for this is because Walmart does a lot of scheduling in their DCs around product anticipation, because they do obviously a lot of aggregation around all of the suppliers coming into the network, and they want to be able to make sure that they're staffed appropriately to handle the amount of cases that are going to be flown through their doors when they show up. So if you ship it late, that would be a potential for unplanned labor in their network, and that is not something that will make them happy. Let's go ahead and check this by DC. And we want to look at bottom 10. The reason why we want to look at bottom 10 is there could be a potential opportunity for us to drive significant improvements in the supply chain. If we know that the distance or weather is impacting our ability to fulfill Walmart's orders on time and in full. And there's a map view down below, so that we could then select, get a little bit more granular detail, potential for, as a supplier ship point node, that maybe we're shipping from Wyoming to this DC, and that's part of the issues. Maybe our lead time in the system isn't set up correctly, so we are having trouble meeting the on-time requests from Walmart for that particular DC from our ship point. So we would want to review or do a lead time audit potentially for DCs where we've consistently underperformed on an on-time measure. This is all high level summary information. We can click this button over on the left side to get into the PO details that make up all of that information. Alternatively, from this page, we can click into, let's say if we wanted to look at the supplier issues, we go ahead and click there. It will take us over to that PO details tab and pass the filter of supplier accountable for any potential cost of goods fines that might arise from not shipping on time or in full. And you can see if you scroll over that the not in full cases is less than or equal to 0, and that the other filter that particular link applied was supplier effective cases greater than or equal to 1. So that's basically going to filter this entire time frame down to only orders where the supplier was not compliant with what Walmart had requested from a time and quantity standpoint. Again, pretty handy information. What we can do with this actually is bring that into our Power BI instance as well. So what we would want to do is go back to the main page, come back here so that we notice no filters are applied, choose all time frame available, and we would then want to hit download. We'll wait a little bit, and that report should start to generate. We'll go back over here to try and get us caught back up. So our OTIF report is generating and starting to download. I'll go ahead and open it once it downloads to kind of walk through some of the columns and what they look like. We can get pretty deep into the detail of trailers, delivery modes. If we went through the consolidation network, all of your date information of when it was supposed to arrive, when it actually arrived, some timestamp information of when it came through the network, which network it went through, kind of delivery type, if it was live or cross-dock, or freight type, prepaid, collect, that kind of thing. PO event code, manual PO flag. So if a feature was created, this usually would show up as a manual purchase order. The rules for being on time and in full are a little bit different for manual purchase orders because those can be adjusted over time. So there's a window that if they cancel a manual PO within 45 days of it being created, then you would not be held liable in that scenario for not shipping a product because Walmart canceled an order. Item information, EDI dates, and then kind of our item attribute stuff. So it looks like our report is done. We'll go ahead and jump over to Excel. Here's that report that just ran. Let Microsoft verify it. Maybe. I'll go and expand out the columns. This first row right here is reserved for the total aggregation for all of the data that's in the actual spreadsheet. So let's go ahead and enable editing. Expand our columns again. So we can see for this entire data set, for the time frame that we selected, which would be week 23 through week 35, excuse me. There were some early cases. Most of the cases are on time, some late cases, unfilled cases, not in full cases. And that breaks down a little bit further of, was it prepaid versus collect, or was that a routing issue, or was, again, that manual PO canceled within 45 days? Total POs were canceled potentially. And then it gives us our supplier affected cases, cost of goods of those affected cases. And again, if this number from a on time and in full perspective, these two numbers, if they don't meet Walmart's criteria, this is what we would be potentially looking at, a portion of this from a fine from Walmart. So they would look to recoup some of that cost of goods that you did not ship or could not ship in full or on time, as it again disrupts the network and does not allow them to plan effectively to flow that product through the network. So that's our Excel file. What we can do is save it into our reports folder and give it a little bit of a better name. Where's reports? So we can just call it OTIF. If you wanted to keep like the week ranges, what was this? Was 23 through 35. Walmart, each time they publish new information, excuse me, a week goes off the back and then gets added to the front. So there's potential that next week or in a couple of weeks, we would no longer be able to go back and get week 23 information. Within here, there's, again, charges. We could look at charges. We could go to filter from total company to actual e-commerce. So we could get all of the same information for our e-commerce business if we wanted to do that. There's other reports within here for advanced ship notice and SQEP. SQEP is basically quality of compliance. So breaking that down further from not just like item PO data, it goes into load and pallet compliance. So if you've got items that are showing up damaged or potentially wrong cases, wrong labels, things of that nature, that would be something that you could find inside of this SQEP reporting. Similar to the OTIF side of it is there's a summary and a detail. And you can see weekly values, case compliance, PO accuracy, pallet compliance, load compliance, chargebacks. So if Walmart's issuing out chargebacks because of you shipping product that's not in compliance with their standards. If you wanted to export this information again, you could go to the details tab and select your timeframes. Hit apply, and you would choose the different classifications of compliance as the result sets would be adjusted depending on the compliance issues that you have selected up at the top. But you can select on those and then download those reports individually and kind of give them a little bit of a deeper look. Each of these has its own set of columns within it. Case compliance might have some different columns that are associated with it versus pallet compliance, and then load compliance as well. Let's see what else is in here. ASN. Nope, that jumped us out. Let's get back in there. So this is the advanced ship notice information, interacting back with Walmart from a supply chain perspective of Walmart sends you an order, you send them back an advanced ship notice of, hey, yeah, we got the order. You ordered 2,000 units. We're only going to be able to ship out 1,950. So that helps them again from a planning of resources perspective. That flow of information then is tracked back through this reporting portal of, are you responding back to Walmart with advanced ship notices on your purchase orders? And again, here you can choose different timeframes to monitor your performance. Different filters that you can put in place if you needed to dig into a particular section. Download the report to Excel if you'd like. Let's go back to OTIF. So we've covered performance. We kind of went through some charges information that you can kind of track your charges over time through March alignment and trend analysis, digging deep to, again, is it a DC issue or potentially supplier number if you got multiple 6-digit or 9-digit supplier numbers, categories, departments, etc. Let's go back to our presentation. So now we're going to jump into forecast. So our forecast is going to drive, again, it's going to drive that supply plan, which is going to drive purchase orders which could, again, drive on time and in full. We're starting to develop a little bit of a network of information that we want to ensure that we can help Walmart develop an accurate forecast so that they can develop accurate purchase orders ahead of time and a supply plan that would be pretty accurate so that you as a supplier can prepare your product ahead of time and do a little bit of a future planning from a resources perspective on your own side and allocate product to the network as needed. So we'll go back to DSS and get our forecast report started. Decision support new. We want to go back into supply chain again, and we want to select demand forecast as our template. So the first time we went into that supply chain template, we selected supply plan. This time, so supply plan is again, the order projections that Walmart is going to produce. It's, again, no guarantee of orders, but definitely a good report and information that you can monitor to check to make sure that, maybe if you had planned some features ahead of time, that those would show up in that order forecast potentially, depending on how Walmart executes them. Or if there's some seasonality changes that are about to occur, if you're getting ready to go into a peak season and anticipate larger orders coming up, you can use that supply plan to see those. Those numbers are driven by this store or DC forecast. We're going to choose a store forecast. Walmart forecast at DC or store, and they can do a roll up or expand out. So they can forecast at the DC level, and it could expand down to the stores depending on each store's contribution to that DC's volume. But we're going to pick item information, item number, business unit information. We're going to pick store. Forecast information, we're going to choose our forecast create week, sales, Walmart week, base forecast, event forecast, total forecast. Items. We want to choose item numbers not one of, 0, and then add our combined activity. Again, since this is forecast information, we might have items that don't have sales yet that we would want to grab and monitor their forecast ahead of time, so orders don't get created off of a bad forecast that we would then have to go cancel. So we would want to choose item numbers not one of 0. And our combined activity filter. Locations, we're going to do all stores. Similar to the supply plan report, we're going to select current week and future PO ship months. We can choose all months available. Similar to that supply plan report, we want to adjust these ship months every month or two so that we can make sure that we've got as far forward as we can see. Call this one store forecast or whatever we want to call it. We want to do as text, compressed, schedule it, run it. Save it, move it into our reports folder. And now we are ready to monitor the status of all the reports that we had submitted, download them, save them into our local reports folder, and get into the Power BI side. So we should be able to get all of the reports that we had created, downloaded. This defaults to new decision support. If we remember, the first two queries that we did were store master and store of the community. Those will only show up inside of business unit information. So we'd have to flip over to that and then go to status and grab those reports. All right, let's go into Power BI. This slide that I've got up right now is just kind of a reminder that those DSS files come back with some weird names. So it's more helpful if when we download each of the reports, we extract it to a folder, and then we open that folder and move that to our reports path, go to our reports path, and rename that newest report that we just drug over to something that's more meaningful. The best way to do is just to match the DSS report name that we had created it from. So if we had created a report that said weekly forecast for analgesics, when we download the report, we would change the name of the particular file that we drug over to the same name. All right, let's go Power BI. So we want to go ahead and let's pick get data. Actually, let me close this, drag it over first. Now we can use the interface to get data. Let's pull in the store master first. So we want to pull from an Excel workbook. We want to find our reports folder that we had been saving our reports to. We're just going to grab store master. This is going to pull up a navigator, and we want to select the first sheet. And if you recall our data as it returned and any of the Excel reports that we have selected are going to have like basically the report criteria gets pushed at the top of the report that we ran that we wanted to return in the Excel format. So from a Power BI perspective, what we want to do, notice that we want to transform the data. That'll bring up our Power Query editor. And we want to say from here, remove rows. For this particular report, we want to remove the first 9 rows. Remove top rows, 9. So that gets us to here. So now row 1 is basically our column headers. So at this point, we can say use first row as headers. That'll do 2 things, basically to take that first and put it into our column headers. And then Power BI also analyzes the data that's in your data set and tries to adjust the column formats to match what you would anticipate your data being. Pretty handy for sure. Let me check something here real quick. Okay. So we'll just scroll through to make sure none of our columns look crazy or anything like that. And we want to name this store master, or we can call it store master. You know, can call it whatever we want basically. But this name is how we're going to reference it when we start writing our formulas. So while we're in this, actually, let's go ahead and hit close and apply. So Power BI now is going to load that file into its memory, and we get our data model started over here. So from our store master's data, we can shape map. You might not have shape map. So what we want to do is go over to our file menu, options and settings, options. We want to enable under preview features, we want to enable shape map visual. This is a good visual for mapping information. Spark lines is pretty good. We won't use that one in today's example, but any of these other ones that you feel you want to learn more about, they've all got links. So we want to make sure that we've got shape map visual selected. That'll give us this particular visual. We'll drag it over. And from here, we can actually, let's classify some of our information first. So clicking on a column allows us to pull up the column tools, and we want to change the category of state to state or province. We want city to map to city. And we can take street address and map it to address. So this is helpful for Power BI when it goes to put things on a map. There's potential that the address that whatever Walmart associate keyed into the system may not be 100% accurate from a Bing's map perspective. So classifying the state and the city and the street address of the store helps the drill down capabilities when you're using the mapping visuals within Power BI. So Store Master, we've got that good to go. Let's make sure that one looks all right. Let's go ahead and go back to the Home tab. We want to get data. The next set of information we want to go pull is, let's go get our SOTC master page that we custom created. Through our formulas. This is going to serve as a filtering mechanism. So we can transform to make sure that we've presented our information correctly. Looks good. So we can change the name from sheet 1 to SOTC master. While we're in here, we can basically just import the rest of our data. So let's go new source. Our sales report potentially was from a text file. Weekly sales by type. This is what I happen to have named my file whenever I brought it over into my local drive. So I want to pull that one in. Notice again, we've got this empty column. So it's item flag, store, week, sales type, sales amount, sales units, comp sales amount, comp sales units. And we can verify that by the report in Retail Inc. or from our PowerPoint presentation. We can scroll back a little bit. So we got item, store. Okay. Let's go ahead and hit OK. Now when this loads up, what we want to do is rename these columns. So this first one is going to be item number. This one is item flags. We can actually delete it because it's empty. We can verify that it's empty here. That was that empty column that we had talked about that Retail Inc. just adds. We'll go ahead and take it out. Next one's going to be store number. And we got Walmart week. And we got sales type. And we have sales dollars. Sales units. Comp. Sales dollars and comp sales units. Weekly sales by type is the name of that one. We'll go ahead and get another text file. We'll do our weekly markup markdown that we had saved to our local drive. Again, since we're doing text files, we have to manually define our headers. They should match our report that we had pulled. And this is going to be item number. This is that item flags column that we can delete. This is store number. Walmart week. Markup markdown description. Markup markdown quantity. Total markup markdown dollars. And we can go grab, what else do we got? Our SOTC traits. So this is our store and trait combination. We'll notice a little bit different on how Retailink delivers this data. Let me open the file and show you. So this file is actually column 1 is the store number, and then column 2 is a comma separated list of all of the traits that store has from the traits list that we had plugged in for all of our demographics. So that's what would be returned. So let's close that. Go back over here. So that column 2 looks kind of funky. So what we'll do is we're going to hit OK. And we've got to do a little bit of adjustments. So over on the right side, we see that it tried to change the type to a number because it thought that all of those numbers with commas was just one big number. So we want to delete this step. And now we get the values that we should have in our raw text file. And I'm going to check something else real quick. So here what we want to do is we want to select this column and transform. And we want to text between delimiters. I think this is what we want to do here. Actually, let's check. Split column, here we go. Split column by delimiter. We're going to choose a comma, each occurrence. And we're going to put advanced options, we're going to put the values into rows. So basically, instead of having a bunch of columns, we're going to have store 1's going to have a bunch of rows for each of the traits. And then store 2 is going to have a bunch of rows for each of its traits. So we get that set up. And now we can rename the columns that this is going to be store number, and this is going to be trait number. We need a calendar. We're going to go make a Walmart calendar file. So we're going to have the columns date, day of week, Walmart week, Walmart year, and Walmart year week. Since we've got 2 years of history, we can go back a little bit further than that. We'll just start with the beginning of Walmart's year 2019. So since I know that date, 1/26/2019, we're going to start that one, and we're going to get the day of the week based on Walmart's starting week of Saturday. So that code is, inside of Excel, 16, means we assume that the week starts on Saturday as opposed to a Sunday or a Monday. So that would be a Friday. I'm sorry, that would be a Saturday. And that's going to be week 1 of 2019. And we're going to create the Walmart week by formula. So it's basically the Walmart year times 100 plus the Walmart week gives us the Walmart year week combination. So now I want to take this down. Take this down. This is going to be all week 1, all 2019. I'm looking fill. So our next date here we're going to use a formula for a Walmart week. So what this formula is going to do basically is check to make sure that the start of the week hasn't occurred and that the 1st of February doesn't fall within the week that we're in. If it does, then it's going to force our value to be week 1 and increment our year by 1 value. Day of the week is still going to drag. Make sure that we get our year calculation. And then we want to take this formula basically and attach it to this. So we want all 7 days of that first week to be looking at row 8. So we're going to check the value of this date. Is it between 2/1 and before 2/1? If it is, again, force the value to 1. Otherwise, we're going to use 2. Now we're going to take all 7 days. We're going to fill this down so that that process repeats itself. Let's see how far are we out now. So we're out 2025. Let's go a little bit further. 2026. So we'll stop at the end of 2025 for this example. Now we can go back and double check to make sure. Freeze panes, where you at? So make sure that February 1st of the next year falls into week 1. Yep. Saturday. Check week 1 here. So there's the 1st. It forces it to week 1. All right, so that should be good. We can go ahead and save this file as, we'll call it Walmart calendar. Okay. And then inside of Power BI, we'll go ahead and import the Walmart calendar. It's an Excel workbook. Everything looks good. And this report name is Walmart calendar. So this is our daily information. We want also to get weekly level information so that we have one record per week. And then we're going to have the beginning and ending dates of each week. So what we can do here is right click. We want to reference that report. We're going to change this to Walmart weeks. And we're going to say transform group by. We're going to group by Walmart week, Walmart year, and Walmart year week. And we want to begin date, minimum of the date. And then we also want to add end date, maximum of the date. So now we have one record per Walmart week, which is going to help for us to join and filter more effectively. Then we're going to add another table based off of that calendar to get the values for the current week that we're in. So we're going to reference again. We're going to call this today D. And basically what we're going to say here is we're going to filter the date is equal to today. Okay. And we want to add a table for our fuzzy dates. So we're going to have a fuzzy order column. We're going to have a fuzzy range column. So this is going to be this week. This is going to be last week. Last 4 weeks. Last 13 weeks. Last 52 weeks. And then we're going to have a year to date. And we're going to call this fuzzy order. Fuzzy order is going to be the name of that column. And fuzzy range. All right. So let's go grab our OTIF export. And remember when we first pulled it open, it had a first column there that was pretty much blank, except over to the right, it had the summary values. We don't need those for our reporting, so we're going to go ahead and delete that row. So I want to say remove rows, remove top, one row. Scroll over and check, just make sure nothing else looks funky. That's going to be okay. That one's called receiver. We can change that to what if, and we can pull in our item master. Do we have that? No, let's pull in item master. We ran this one as an Excel file, so we're going to have to delete those first several rows. So we want to delete the first 22 rows. So we get remove rows, top rows, 22. And we're going to promote first row to headers. Item flags, surprise. We can leave it, delete it. Doesn't necessarily matter at this point, but let's check the other columns. Okay, those look good. Our inventory history was a text file. Actually, before we do that, let's change the name of this item master. Now let's go grab our inventory history. Okay, so what we need to do now is go back and check our columns to make sure we're mapping them correctly. So first we got item number. We have that item flags column, delete it. And then store number. And then Walmart week. Average traded. Let's just call this week traded, week valid. Week in stock. Week REPL in stock. History on hand. And we've got our daily on hands out to the right. It's going to be Saturday on hand, Sunday on hand, Monday on hand, Tuesday on hand, Wednesday on hand. All right, so we got inventory history. Missing supply plan. Let's go grab our supply plan. That was an Excel file, I think. Seems pretty cumbersome, but we only have to do this once. Then we just run our reports, download them, save them to that folder, and then we hit refresh, and then everything updates. But the first setup does take a little bit. So now we need to delete the first 15 rows. Promote our rows to headers. Notice we've got dates now formatted. And this is supply plan. I think if we have anything else that we need. Our forecast data, did we get that already? Item number, store number, week, Walmart week, forecast create week. Oh, so that one is forecast create week. Forecast sales week. Base, event, and total. And these columns are broken up. Basically, base forecast is kind of like the daily forecasted values for the sales for the item store combination. And if there's a feature coming up or some sort of a promotion, the supply chain teams at Walmart can enter parameters into the system to keep those values separate so they don't cloud the historical data when it comes time to reforecast, if you're not going to repeat those promotions year over year. So that's pretty handy to be able to separate those out. So this is going to be event forecast and total forecast. All right, so now we got all of our reports. We hit close and apply, and basically it's going to pull in all of that data. So it might take a little bit depending on the size of your data sets. This particular supplier does have some pretty large data. I did limit sales to just be the last 13 weeks on this particular load. Hopefully it speeds it up a little bit. Next thing we're going to do after these load in, we're going to go to our relationship page and start to make sure that we've got our joins set up correctly on each of our data sets so that our filtering and aggregations will run appropriately. In doing so, we might need to add a few calculated columns. To build out our fuzzy dates, we'll need to use that today D data set and then compare it against each of the weeks that are in our Walmart calendar file to dynamically calculate how far back each of those weeks are based on today's date. So here is our relationship models. If we hold Control and roll our wheel down, it should zoom out. So what I like to do is Store Master, I know, is one of our main data sets. Inventory Hist is not, so I'll kind of drag that out. The ones that are not main data sets, such as like Item Master, Store Master, and Calendar, I'll kind of put them to the outside and then bring our main ones in. So we got Walmart Weeks and Walmart Calendar. These need to come in. These are going to be basically joined to all of the other tables on the Walmart week value. So Walmart year week will match to Walmart week. And we just create a relationship here. We can double click it to look at it a little bit more in depth. Inventory Hist is the table. Walmart Weeks is the other table. We're joining Walmart year week to Walmart week. And we want to join on a cardinality of many to one. So there's many of this value on this table and one value for that particular instance on the Walmart Weeks table, which is why we created that Walmart Weeks aggregation table. Filter direction is single, so that means I can't select from inventory history and it's going to filter weeks. I select from the weeks and it filters inventory history. So that way I can just filter on weeks and it can filter all of our other cascaded tables. So we just hit OK. And we want to do the same thing for weekly markup markdown. Walmart year week to Walmart week. And the weekly sales by type, same thing. And sometimes this gets kind of cumbersome or convoluted. So what you can do is create a new view and then basically drag in Walmart weeks and make sure that we've got all of our weeks joined to our correct tables. Inventory. Forecast. I want to join that one. And we'll join on the forecast sales week. Supply plan had dates on it, so we're not joining to week on those. We'll join to the dates table and the dates can join to the weeks. Okay, let's go back to our main layout and we're going to change this relationship from the calendar to the weeks table. So we double click it and we want to filter both directions. So if I filter on the dates of the calendar, I want that to also filter the weeks, which would then filter everything else. Or if I filter on the weeks, I would want it to filter the days. which would filter anything else that's attached to the calendar dates, which we're going to join supply plan order date to the calendar date. And we can double check the item relationships. So we're joining to inventory history, OTIF, supply plan, markdown, sales, forecast. So those should be good. Locations, so stores, we want to manage those relationships. Store to forecast table, store to store on the history inventory table, traits table, markdown table, sales by type. Good. And the OTIF, we don't have store number, so we're not joining to store master, but we want to join. Let's join must arrive by date to the date table. And item number, so we got that, that's good. All right, now what we want to do is I'm going to open a few of these up. Walmart weeks. I'm going to add a column. Call this a last four indicator. And we're going to say our today D actually we're going to do a bit of other housework first. So our today D table, we're going to add a couple of values here. So add a new measure. We're going to say, give me the max date. And we're going to call that beg for calls. And then we're going to give us the max week, so we can use it in formulas as well. Now we're going to create our relative weeks formula inside of our Walmart weeks table as a column. And we're going to say if the Walmart week is less than the week from today's date, We're going to subtract it. Otherwise, we're going to check to make sure if it's not week 53. If it's week 53, we'll use its value and then take the difference of those two columns, and that will give us the number of weeks back each individual week is from today's date. So we double check that, find current week. So we're in this week currently. 1 week back would it be? Yes, that's good. I've got a bunch of other formulas over here on another report that I've generated. Let's go ahead and drag it over. So what we've done is created a lot of formula to manage our relationships. We're doing this for a brevity of time. So understanding that what we've done is basically created indicators for our calendar table to check to make sure that the date of a given row is a current week, or if it's last week or last 4 or last 13, last 52 or year to date. And then we've also generated a table based on those values that unions each of those subsets of data to create a master table that has all weeks and how they correspond to those different fuzzy dates. In essence, what we want to be able to do is have a given week be duplicated across different time frames, in the sense that week 36 would exist inside of last week. It would also exist inside of last 4 weeks, last 13 year to date, and last 52 weeks. So we do that across the board with the formula that we've implemented. From that, we then can start to construct our fuzzy date mapping. So we basically create a selected value measure and join it up with the fuzzy date table, which also has the year, week value. That in our relationships view, we would join that to the calendar table. So anytime we select a fuzzy date, it grabs all of those weeks and filters the Walmart weeks appropriately, which in turn filters all of the weeks from the connected tables. Other things that we have done within this data set is to create aggregated measures. So from our raw data, we have sales units and sales dollars. We want to create an aggregate measure to roll that up across whatever reporting level that we're viewing. So basically we create a new column by going here, create a new measure, and we enter a formula. For total sales, we wanted to sum the sales dollars. For total units, we wanted to sum the sales units. And then we can use those values to calculate this year and last year measures by instituting a new measure calculating from that measure and passing the filter of so we can actually change this to fuzzy year, so it's a little bit easier to read, equals this year. Because we've created fuzzy year formulas to dynamically map date ranges to these fuzzy time frames. So we can say now calculate all of the total sales where the fuzzy date is equal to this year, and that's going to be this year's sales. And then we can basically drag this into a report. We have this year's sales. We add Walmart week to the x-axis, and that would show us by week what this year's sales would be. And then we've also done the same thing with the last year values. So we could drag last year's sales into this report, and we could see comparison, flip it over to a line chart, and now we're off and running. Starting to make some good progress now that we've got all of our mapping and relationships in place. Some of these formulas do start to get pretty tricky, but I can post this workbook where you guys can utilize it and kind of grab some of the formula from it and put them into your own reporting so that you can start to create these calculated measures for things such as average price, so AUR. So basically, if the total units is nothing, return nothing. Otherwise, we want to take total sales divided by total units. And what that value looks like is pull it over here, then we can add the week. So this would be our average price. Actually, let's grab the end of the week. So average price by week. And then further, we can segregate that by passing the filter with the formula calculate AUR with the filter of fuzzy year is last year, right? So if we take AUR out and we add last year AUR, and then we could add this year AUR, we can see a comparison of AUR over time. There's a gap, again, because I only pulled the last 13 weeks for this particular supplier, just because of the size of the data that they've got. But what we can do to bring these back together, instead of having a time series, we want to change the end date out for Walmart week, which is common across. And then now we can get year-over-year comparisons for AUR. And again, since we've done all of the groundwork of setting up our models, setting up our data, all we have to do next week is go run our sales reports or inventory reports, save them into that same path, and then we would hit refresh and all of our data would be updated, ready to go with the reports that we're building out. What I've done in this workbook is kind of created a summary page that utilizes those fuzzy dates that we created to generate comparisons for this year and last year's sales, markdowns as a percent of sales, the in-stock percentage for this year and last year, AUR comparisons for this year and last year, and then pulling in the on-time and in-full measures for those given timeframes as well. Over in the top right, we've got inventory position as the light blue bar in the background. And then on the front of that, we have sales units. This is a decent view for tracking any spikes in inventory that come up potentially in the stores, or spikes in sales where inventory maybe wasn't planned appropriately. We would see a huge dip in the inventory levels. This section below is mapped to these fuzzy dates. So we've got a map that I can change to last 13 weeks. The map will update. If I pick last 4 weeks, the map will update. If I pick an item, now we're looking at this item for the last 4 weeks. I can hover over a state. And what I've developed here is a drill in tooltip, basically, that takes the values from my filters. So I've used the item filter and the state filter to pass into this hover view. And now it's going to say for the item that we've selected. For California, here's all of the pertinent information that we've designed for it. As we hover over a different state, it will filter and adjust accordingly. Alternatively, we can click a state, and that would then update the entire dashboard. I click Texas, so that would update the whole dashboard to be data for just Texas. So pretty handy. Again, once we get everything set up, pretty interactive. We can figure out what's going on where pretty quickly, how our stores and items are performing across the United States. We can sort on these tables by any of the fields. We can add new fields, based on our calculations that we've created. We can add new data sets and then create our filtering across them. So what we can do, for example, is let's take a peek at this guy. So we can see that this guy struggled pretty much across the board with a subset of stores that are doing okay. And if we hover over Iowa, we see that the majority of those stores are performing pretty good. So basically what we've done here is tried to create an interactive experience that you can leverage all of those reports from Retail Inc. that we talked about into a cohesive manner to manage your business, provide visibility to different levels of your business, and see how the data interoperates across each of the different measures, such as this one showing the sales, replenishment in stock, and OTIF by week. So you can see how they potentially could impact each other as in-stock drops, or as my on-time in full numbers drop, my in-stock could be impacted, which could then impact my sales. And as my OTIF starts to recover, my sales would start to recover shortly thereafter. Markdowns, we've aggregated these into total company based on, so like if I pick this item, actually, here's an example here, right? So right now it's passing a context filter, so it highlights. We want to change that. So we want to go edit the interaction of this table that I've selected to filter. Let me check to make sure which one this is. We want to take the context of this one to filter this view. I'll move it back. So now if I select another item, this should adjust, right? So that's how we set up our interactions between the different visuals, as we use this format button at the top, select the visual that we want to have as a driver, and then edit the interaction. This is filter, this is highlight, and then this is don't do anything. But what we can do also, again, from a tooltip perspective, is we've designed these other tabs down here and set their properties to be a tooltip itself, so that when I hover over markdowns, I then get the tooltip for markdowns by state. I can see particular traits potentially that are marking down items more often than others, locations that are marking it down, and then the items themselves that are getting marked down. And again, if I select an item, then it'll pass that filter along the way, and everything should update accordingly. It also passes the contextual filter of the markdown type along to that view as well. The next page is supply plan. Again, based on the limited sales data, it's not going to be quite as robust as it would be if we had the full 104 weeks of history. But so we've got the last 13 weeks of sales, and then the supply plan units of what we plan to ship out from the supplier facility for the future weeks that are ahead. And as I mentioned before, there's a drop off here. This could be due to the length of time that it is and the items that are part of that data set, or there could be a true drop in demand at that point. But we could definitely leverage this view from an internal business planning perspective from a supplier side to understand and prepare for future orders that may come from Walmart from a quantity perspective, as well as a location perspective on where we're going to be expected to ship those units to. This SOTC page is leveraging those traits, and the design on this one is to spot potential opportunities for growth where you might have items that are attached to stores with a given demographic trait, but you're not in all of those stores. So this will help calculate and quantify any potential growth that will be available out there based on anomalies of what sets those stores apart and how many more stores are on the trait that you don't have items in already. This one's going to take a minute to load up. Might be able to jump over to OTIF and come back. So similar to what we saw on the OTIF dashboard in Retail Inc., we designed a view that supports the majority of business logic and decisions that you would use on that page. So showing by shipping DC number, the number of cases ordered for any given time frame. We can filter this down and we show on time and in full, and then the OTIF total, how many cases were early, on time, how many were late, etc. Again, clicking a DC would then filter the rest of the dashboard. If we identified potentially DC 6017's got some opportunities, we're struggling to deliver on time to this particular DC. Is it mainly because of a given item or potentially, again, distance or weather related, something along those lines? And we can see that there's 2 occurrences here in our history where we did not get anything on time. That would definitely bring our numbers down. Alternatively, again, we can use the item attributes to cross filter. If we hold control, then we would get the intersection filter for both DC and the item that we had selected. So we selected the liquid sleek 12 ounce, hold control, hit 60/20, and now the rest of our data would be populated based on those 2 contextual filters. So that's pretty much it. We worked a lot in Retail Inc. to develop our reports, spent a good amount of time in ensuring that our data was as we expected and creating intuitive file names that we could find our information correctly. We then mapped our data, imported it into Power BI. We set up our relationship models, and we briefly went over some of these formulas that we started to create, but definitely there's a lot of formulas within the Power BI model. And again, the whole idea behind this is that we do this once, and now we have this enormous plethora of data available at our fingertips that we can mix and match to figure out what it is that we need to do to drive our business forward. Matt, you got anything to add to that?
No, I think this is great. I think you've obviously put a whole lot of work into it. And I think that folks are going to want to go back through the video and hit pause and rewind and look at some of these things more closely. But I think you've given us a whole lot of really, really great information.
Fantastic.
I'm not seeing any questions come in, so I won't keep you or the attendees here any longer than is absolutely necessary. But in terms of a wrap up, share one more time. Talk about the work that you are doing with supplier teams and kind of your sweet spot with respect to where you can jump in and help help teams. And then lastly, how they can contact you.
Yeah, for sure. So what primarily I'm working with suppliers on is automation of the data flows. So instead of having to go into RetailLink and build all of these reports out and monitor the status of the daily request and try to go download them to a specific folder, I've got a solution offering that does all of that for the suppliers, submits the reports, monitors the status, downloads them into a given location, and then help build out these Power BI dashboards to support their business processes and their business needs. Primarily, as it relates to Walmart, we also offer support for other retailers as well. My email, sean.nicholas@dataninjainc.com. And then my phone number is 479-685-9060.